DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. We hope you had a wonderful weekend. It was hot as hell out there. I survived. I was outside a lot this weekend.
Wow.
I was.
Did somebody force you to be out?
No. I braved the elements.
Bridget kick you out? Made you sit on the back patio?
Not this time. But I want y'all's takeaways, but then I want Derek Mason to share something he said to all of us over the weekend that I think a lot of Titans fans need to hear. So, Willy Donick, let's start with you. What should we take away from today's Tennessee Titans practice?
I think one of the things that I saw that I'm sure I'm not the only one that saw it, but it clearly looks like they're going to go with a rookie right guard. Francisco Carmona looks like he is the guy right now. He took every snap with the ones today, and he was working one-on-one with Jeffrey Simmons a lot, sometimes hanging in there, sometimes not hanging in there, but it's moving in that direction. And Carnell Tate made a great catch today and got hit, and it looks like he's going to be okay. But wow, it was a moment where you held your breath for a second, but also like, wow, that was a catch that not everybody makes. So those were two takeaways I had. I don't want to hog the whole thing, but I think Carmona is probably the biggest story today. It doesn't look like there's any doubt right now that he's going to be the starter unless he screws it up.
Derek Mason, what did you take away from today's Titans practice?
I thought Carmona, like Willie said, really held his own at times. I mean, when you're going up against Jeffrey Simmons, either you're going to bulk up and be an NFL guard, or you're going to, somebody else is going to replace you. And it seems like Carmona is stepping up to the task. He's still got a ways to go, but I think the young man is headed down the right path. Peter Skronsky's still impresses me. J.C. Latham was impressive out there, and nothing more outside of that. I think the running game is still a work in progress. Chestnut is a guy that just pops every time you see him. He's not a wild guy, but he's doing the things that you're asking him to do. And, if you're checks and minuses, plus and minuses, he would be a plus just about every time. So just point stuff. Slide continues to knock him out the park. I mean, what was his longest, Willie? It was like 50-something.
He looked good, very confident. I think he's quieted any worries, at least for the moment. It can go bad in 3 weeks, right?
Uh-huh.
We know how kickers work, but he looks like he's settled down any worries about that. There was a moment where Mitch Trubisky threw a long pass and started kind of fiddling with his arm, his throwing arm, and had to leave practice. So there were extra reps for Will Levis as a result in that. So that's something, I guess, to keep our eye on. I don't know. I didn't catch what they said after practice about that, but the result, I guess, was Levis got a few more chances to play.
Next Man Up is not only a show on 102.5 The Game from 9 a.m. to noon on weekdays. So if Mitch Trubisky is dealing with an injury, Will Levis, Next Man Up, a.k.a. Scrub Daddy. Don't think I forgot about that over the weekend, Derek Mason. Scrub Daddy, a.k.a. Will Levis.
You're not going to let it go. Will looked okay today. He did. He dirted one which he needed to dirt. There was one that he did throw sort of a lollipop, and it got broken up. But beside that, I think he completed a couple of short ones and led a drive. It didn't end up in a score, did it, Willie? I don't think it ended up in a score. I think
the 2-minute drill.
Yeah.
No, he had to heave one. If it was
in
at
the
the end
back
of the
of the
half, they would have been in field goal range.
Exactly.
But their drill was end of game, down by 4, so you had to score a touchdown.
Exactly.
So both quarterbacks got them right up to the scoring area.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly how far Levis got because we were on the other end of the field. Cam got inside the 5 after that great catch by Tate, but they did not punch it in to the end zone.
Okay, what I want to get into here is because everybody doesn't get an opportunity to go to practice. Like I know there are some fans that would love to go to practice, but because of the work schedule, kids are just starting school now. You can't get out there. So what you rely on is guys like that are on the show, other guys and girls around town that, cover the Titans and put out information from the Titans. So that's how you're sort of looking, engaging the Tennessee Titans. And when you see, Cam's having really good days and, the offense is doing well, you're sort of in this space now where, okay, when I finally do see them, they're not going to be a finished product, but they're doing some good things. So I want to see these good things that they're doing. And then when you watch it on television, it doesn't look like anything that we've been describing. And that's the part that I'm frustrated with is that, it has to come a point when, your practice, your game imitates your practice. It has to, because right now, nothing about what you do in practice imitates anything, just about anything outside of the offensive line. They're still developing. I think the D line is developing, but the parts that we're the most concerned about, it's not imitating what we see on the practice field. And that's the part that I'm getting frustrated with. Yes, they do great things in practice. Yes, Cam, today he was lights out, especially in the red zone early on. I think he 2 or 3 touchdowns, and he's just hitting everybody. And I'm like, that's okay. That's good. I love seeing it. But if it's not imitating what's going on the field on game day, then what are you doing this for? Whatever you do should be an imitation of what you do in practice. Game time should emulate what you do in practice. That's why coaches get so much on guys when they're not hustling or doing certain things, because you start to get into those bad habits, and a lot of times they translate into the game. But this is sort of like this transverse world, or this multiverse that the Titans are in. Like, they do all this good stuff in practice, and then when they get in the game, you don't see it on a consistent basis. And I think that's where the fans are frustrated. They're frustrated with Cam Ward because we talk about him and how he's growing as a player on the practice field, but it's not translating, at least not this first game. It didn't translate well. And the fans are getting frustrated. I think everyone's getting frustrated. Again, I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater here. I'm not, sky is falling. But it's going to have to come a point in time. This is why people are getting frustrated. It's going to have to come a point in time where what you do on the practice field in all phases translate to what you're doing on the playing field.
Here's what set you off this weekend. Of course, we talked about it throughout the show on Friday. Cam Ward had a discouraging performance in San Francisco in the Titans preseason opener. The Titans practiced on Saturday as well as today, but we started seeing reports coming out of practice on Saturday, such as this, and I'm not picking on this one guy, but it's the one that came to mind. Ben Arthur of Fox Sports, based here in Nashville, tweeted this out on Saturday. Quote, Titans held an unpadded practice today in their return from San Francisco. What stood out the most? Cam Ward and the offense were giving the starting cornerbacks all the business at practice today, end quote. I saw a headline from A to Z Sports that started, Cam Ward cooks. And your point, Derek Mason, was this. One, maybe Cam Ward is cooking because the starting cornerbacks aren't very good. But I think your overall
but
point.
You said also one distinction: unpadded practice.
Yes, unpadded practice.
Unpadded practice.
So things like that. Listen, I am only going by. I'm not being unfair. I don't think I'm being unfair. This is something that I would say to them in their face because I don't think I'm being unfair. I want them to develop all of them, especially the quarterback. I want him to develop. I want him to be the franchise guy. But what you're doing on the practice field, we haven't seen consistently. And again, I know it's one game, but we didn't see it in the San Francisco scrimmage. We didn't see it in the game. So if you're doing it against yourself, that's worrisome because I just saw what happened to the secondary. And again, I know they were playing vanilla defense, but even in vanilla defense, man, you got to come up and you got to challenge. So I saw my last picture of the defense secondary, the starting unit, wasn't a good one. So then I put that together with what I'm seeing on the practice field with the wide receivers and the quarterback, and I'm saying, are they really developing, or are they just playing against a group in practice that isn't that good? I don't know yet.
Right.
But it's right for me to ask the question.
Right. That, I think, at this point of the camp, and we were sort of hashing out this today as we were watching. Now, today was a long practice. They worked on a lot of stuff. They must have thrown 10 screens today, the different units. So clearly that was an emphasis today. But you're working on different things. The practice stats that people keep coming out with, I know are of interest to people that don't have access to practice. But to me, there's a lot less emphasis. You're working on stuff. So when you light up a practice that's not in pads a day or two after a game, that's not a news story.
So, for example, along those lines, Willie, from our friend Jim Wyatt, his report from practice today, it was another effective day for Ward, who completed 22 of 28 in the practice, including 19 of 25 in team periods. Ward is now 43 of 53 in the two practices since the 49ers game.
Jim's been doing it for years,
I know,
but I keep saying the same thing. I don't pay attention to that. We had a discussion today about passes that are caught. So in Jim's thing, this would be part of the 43 for 53, but there are plays where you're asking yourself, was it a sack? If that was a real play, and even if it wasn't a sack, would the throw have been affected by said player? There was a play. Here's an example. Cam Ward rolls to his left. He's being chased by Jeffrey Simmons, who is all over him, closing fast. But Jeffrey Simmons knows he can't follow through and shove Cam Ward down, but he would have in a real game. But Ward makes a miraculous throw completely across the other side of the field. The crowd loves it. Io Manor catches it. And you're like, wow, what an amazing throw. Well, I don't think in a game he can complete that pass. He would have been set right on his backside by Jeffrey Simmons. It may not have been a sack, but it would have affected the throw. So that's why I throw out the attempts, completions, because it doesn't give any context.
So, Derek.
Yes.
For you, the true barometer for Cam Ward's growth, his performance between now and week 1 against the New York Jets would involve both joint practices remaining, Friday against the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know when the one against the Bears is. It's soon. And then the 2 preseason games against those respective teams. Anything else you're not really considering in the overall evaluation?
Not necessarily, no, because listen, it's good that he can put together, consistent days practicing against your own team. I'm not going to, take that away. I'm not going to not count that for him, because I understand how grueling it can be. And any day you can get to develop, then that's a good day. But if you're doing that against your own team, but it then isn't translating to somebody else when you're playing another opponent that isn't your team, then are you really getting better? That's my only question. And the last we saw this team with the starting unit, outside of the first drive, it just seemed like things just went completely downhill. And it wasn't any better the day before, 2 days before that, when they scrimmaged San Francisco, based on what was coming out of San Francisco from the people that cover the Titans here. So again, this is not a sky is falling, but this is one of those situations, because I guarantee you they're talking about the same thing. They may word it different, or Solomon may word it different, but he's saying the same thing that I'm saying. We got to get to a point. I'm saying we, but not me. They got to get to a point where where their games imitate their practice, where they're consistently doing the same things in games that they're doing in practice. I'm talking about the good things, because they have yet to do it offensively. Defensively, they had some good series up front, but the secondary didn't do it consistently. The offense as a passing unit didn't do it consistently. And more importantly, Cam, the guy that they rely on, he isn't doing it consistently when he's playing against people that are not his teammates.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Your thoughts on Derek's thoughts about Cam Ward and the Titans practice, 615-737-1025. Before we go to break, I do want to take a moment, because this one hit really hard last night before I went to bed. R.I.P. Hayden Panettiere. That when I saw that before I went to sleep, it was a gut punch. First of all, no one deserves to die that young. She was 36 years old, and she had dealt with some personal issues throughout her life. But it reminded me of a couple of things. It reminded me of one, of course, Remember the Titans, her star turn as the daughter of Coach Yost in Remember the Titans. She had some scene stealers in that film, and she was up against Denzel Washington, for God's sake. So, and also, of course, her time on the show Nashville, which I started watching that show before I even knew that moving here was a possibility. So when I found out that I would be moving to Nashville, I was like, great. It's going to be like this show. They're going to be Hayden Panettieres all over the place. And that, of course, did not happen. But we are going to honor Hayden Panettiere today by playing the Remember the Titans soundtrack throughout the program. So that, look, we're used to celebrities dying young and celebrities dying in general, of course. But when I saw that last night, I was devastated. I really was.
I became a fan of hers when she did Heroes, excuse me, because
the show Heroes.
I love the Marvel sort of deal that they got going on, and she was one of the big characters in that one. And then, her being in Nashville, it just sort of took off for her. So I remember in both of those, and I watched every episode in Nashville.
What's funny is, and maybe this is a little embarrassing to some of you, but there is a song that Hayden Panettiere sings as her character Juliet Barnes on the first season of Nashville that I sing to my daughter sometimes. And now I tell my wife, who thinks it's annoying, hey, it's a tribute. It's a tribute to Hayden Panettiere. So I'm going to get away with it for a little bit longer. 615-737-1025. We will get back into the Titans. There is one area of concern other than Cam Ward that keeps popping up. Robert Saleh addressed it over the weekend. We will discuss it coming up next. 615-737-1025. It is a Reaction Monday here on 102.5 The Game. And as always, Reaction Mondays are brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville.
concerned, or do you think that there could be a better performance by them,
Well,
specifically?
Yeah, it's just continuing to rep what we're asking them to accomplish, understanding formations. You're not game planning, so you're not really recognizing formations, recognizing tendencies as we go. But at the same time, just from a man coverage standpoint, being able to win your one-on-ones when those one-on-ones are presented, there's never panic. But is there urgency? There's always urgency from the second we stepped on the football field till the day the season's over. There's going to be urgency to try.
That was Robert Saleh on Saturday addressing the secondary, which, other than Cam Ward, has been the most criticized aspect of the Tennessee Titans so far in training camp. Willy Daunic, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. I learned something during the break. Yes. Willy Daunic braved the elements, went to the Foo Fighters concert at Nissan Stadium over the weekend. That's the last concert at the old Nissan Stadium.
I was taught that by one Dave Grohl.
Oh,
from the Foo Fighters.
He would know.
He said it a couple times during the show. A 3-hour performance, by the way, in the heat.
How much weight did you lose? How much water weight did you lose?
I was fine because I embrace the heat.
Oh, okay.
Unlike some people in this room.
Yeah.
I embrace summer. I'm okay with it.
He's comfy in the fire, man.
No, I'll tell you what, walking into that place, it was hot. Now, our seats were on the, Nissan Stadium. If you're on one side of the stadium, there's shade, but as the sun sets in the west, that other side of the stadium is direct shot. So the people sitting in the upper deck, the bands were checking on. They're like, "Hey, how you guys doing up there at the upper deck? You guys okay?"
Oh,
because it was hot.
Ooh.
But Dave Grohl, 57 years old, he came out flying. 31 years the Foo Fighters have been performing. A buddy of mine from high school has seen them 50 times.
5-0.
I was asking everybody at the Titans practice today, what's the most you've ever seen one band?
So one of the questions, what is the limit that you can see one group or
like he's gone to 6 or 7 countries and followed them and to go see them.
That is dedication.
He is dedicated. Those are his guys. And so he was coming in town. I was like, yeah, I'll go along. I'm not a huge Foo Fighters fan, but I mean, how could you not like them? He's just a great
He's a showman.
He's a great showman.
He's a showman.
And I am glad I went.
So with that, and I don't mean this in a derogatory term, but does that make him a groupie?
I guess kind of.
Yeah, I guess he's been. If he's been in 60 shows,
he was not ashamed to tell us. He was like, "Yeah, I've been to Oslo, I've been to Stockholm, I've been to Denmark." He was like all these places where he's gone to see them.
There you go.
He's seen them in like really tiny venues, and seen them at big stadiums like Nissan. But during the show is when Dave Grohl said, "This is the last concert in this stadium, I'm told. So let's make it a good one, and we're here to rock and roll." So he was bringing it.
I drove by the new stadium today and noticed Nissan Stadium on top of the new stadium. That makes it feel a little realer. I mean, it's almost done, but to see Nissan Stadium on top of the new stadium earlier today when I drove by it, I said, okay, it's getting here. The signage is up. So we heard from Robert Saleh there on the secondary. By the way, Greg Roberts says, I've seen Kings of Leon 9 times.
Ooh.
9 times. One texter says, I've seen the band Skillet 14 times since 2008 from Atlanta to Sacramento and in between.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to know if anybody was at the show on Saturday and
how many times they've been?
615-737-1025. So let's get to your reaction. Derek made a point in the first segment that he's a little sick and tired of people getting worked up, good or bad, by Cam Ward's performances in practice, because all that matters is what he does in the joint practices and the preseason games. Jared from Spring Hill says, I'm enjoying y'all's tenor and analysis of the quarterback. Well, thank you. The third string quarterback, I assume he means Curtis Rourke, moved the ball against our defense with ease. Surely Ward can also. We have no idea what we are looking at. But if that preseason game was the Jets, we lose a boring game in 100-degree heat. He also asks, why not game plan for a preseason game? Callahan didn't, but should have. Why not go out with a plan and try and execute it? Our team is so young and needs focus.
Well, it's not that they don't go out with a game plan, because there is a remnant of a game plan there, albeit it's not what you would, put together during a regular week. But there are things that you probably want to work on that are vanilla things. We were talking earlier on the field. In the game, we didn't see much motion and movement and stuff like that. So they're not going to game plan those things when it comes to the first preseason. Now, you may see a little bit more sort of game planning this go around. I think they're going to have to. But that's the hard part with evaluating this whole thing, because they're keeping it vanilla. But even in a vanilla, you're not doing the things that you have shown you're capable of doing in practice.
I saw Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated throw this note into his recent notebook. Quote, I wouldn't read too much into Cam Ward's shaky preseason debut. Titans OC Brian Daboll generally wants to challenge his quarterbacks through camp in different ways, and my guess is the offense he's building for Ward will look just a little different in week one than it does in preseason games.
I was listening to their latest podcast, Albert Breer, and one of the things he does I thought was interesting. When he watches a preseason game, he will then call the opposite team and say, now, and unfortunately, in the podcast, they did not address the Titans 49ers game specifically, but with Mendoza, they were talking about Mendoza, and they were impressed with Mendoza. And one of the things they do, they ask the other team's defense, how did that quarterback look? And they would say, what were you trying to do against this guy? How did he appear? And that helps them, sift through what to make of somebody who put together good numbers in a preseason game, because that's just on the surface, right? Who else had a good game? Ty Simpson had a really good game, right? Great numbers, like 21 for 25 or something. But it all means different things, the numbers. But I know we're still not going to be satisfied here until we see Cam look better. I mean, it's just, I think everybody on the team, forget about what the fans think, right? That's not as important as what the coaches think, what his teammates think. Just want to have a good feeling about where things are going to start when they start playing for real.
One texter says, everybody pump the brakes. It's one preseason game with a new system.
Exactly.
Cam will be just fine. I don't think we
I don't know
are.
if it'll just be fine, but I would say pump the brakes on the panic.
And I don't think, again, I think you can sort of, like Salah said, there's a sense of urgency. We're not panicking. What we're doing is someone says they're coming over to the house. So it's getting close. So what you're doing now is checking the time. Like, okay, are they okay? But you're still doing what you need to do. When you get to a point where you got to start calling that person, that is panicking. That's where are you? We got to be there. They're not there yet. And nor am I there with Cam or the offense. But that is something sort of like the defense. I put it in my back pocket last week before I saw what I saw. And then once I saw it, it's like, okay, now I'm reaching for it. I need to see something else that will make me, remove my hand from my pocket. And I haven't seen that yet, but they haven't played their second game because, again, until I see the manifestation on the field on the practice field to the field, then you're going to keep asking questions.
Dustin in Hopkinsville says, okay, don't put much into Ward's first preseason game because it will be different than week one. Okay, still explained missed layups and running 15 yards opposite of the goal, risking a sack. I don't think we're excusing the issues Cam Ward had because, quote unquote, it was just one preseason game. But we were clear on Friday that Cam Ward still has a ton of work to do. What we're not doing as a show is making any sort of declarative statements about the future of Cam Ward based on one preseason game. I think there's a slight difference there. It's one thing to say Cam Ward struggled against San Francisco. It was one preseason game versus Cam Ward's a bust because of one preseason game. It's two different things.
The way I would put it is all the questions that we had before the season started based on what happened last year are still questions. I don't think, and I don't know if he was capable of making everybody feel like he's answered all the questions in the preseason, but I haven't seen marked improvement in any of the areas that he needs to improve on yet. No evidence of that yet.
I guarantee you, had they taken him out after the first series, there still would have been a faction of people, even those that, cover the team from here, locally or nationally. There still would be this, well, we don't know what he would look like if he had to play a second series. So it's like you can't
Yeah.
please everybody, but what you can do is make sure all that hard work you're putting in at practice on executing plays, that you go out and you show that you can execute those plays. That's all. That's all I'm asking for.
One texter says, I'll pump the brakes. This is Joe from Maryland. I'll pump the brakes, but I think good players need to act like good players. Cam has to look competent, has to make the easy throws at a higher accuracy. One texter says, based on last year's sample size and what we saw last week, how much better can he get in a month? I don't see much progress in him at all yet.
That's why, again, it's good that you are, doing the necessary things in practice, and you seem to have more good days and bad days in practice, but eventually that has to, manifest itself in the game. And at least from an offensive standpoint, outside of that first series, it didn't. And I'm hoping it gets better. I expect it will get better. But if it doesn't, we're going to continue to have these questions. And you can't fault no one but yourselves if indeed that ends up being the case.
I think we as a society have lost nuance in certain conversations.
A lot of sports talk shows.
Yes, a lot.
No nuance.
Yes. So again, what I am trying to emphasize to all of you out there, when the three of us discuss Cam Ward, we all have a lot of the same concerns that you do about Cam Ward. His accuracy, his decision making, all of those things. We have those same concerns. We are allowed to express those concerns while also not making any sort of declarative statement about how he is going to end up as a quarterback. So to say it was only one preseason game plus all of last season, let's keep that in mind too. To say it was only one preseason game is true, but that doesn't mean we're not concerned about what we're seeing. We're not excusing away the things Cam Ward did last Thursday night because it's quote unquote one preseason game and he's learning a new system and all of that. So I think it's important to just keep all of that in mind as you hear us discuss Cam Ward and accuse us of being Cam Ward apologists or something like that because we're not calling for his head after last week. 615-737-1025. We will continue to take your reaction to the Titans preseason. They are back on the practice field in front of reporters on Wednesday. The defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks are in town for a joint practice on Friday. And coming up next, speaking of those Seahawks, Willy Daunic sent something to the group this weekend that was not safe for work for me. And we are going to discuss that coming up next because it's something we are going to witness firsthand when the Seahawks are here on Friday. 615-737-1025. Also be listening. At one point during the show, I will give you the cue to call to win a pair of tickets to the Liberty Mutual Music City kickoff game as Ole Miss takes on Louisville at Nissan Stadium on Sunday, September 6th. So if you want those tickets, be listening. I'll give you the cue to call at some point during the show. 615-737-1025. Willy Daunic, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
team in control. Seattle is a team in control, including mastery of their spirals, especially Sam Darnold's. The reason for those beautiful passes is spin rate, the number of revolutions of the football while it's in flight. The higher the rate, the tighter the spiral.
Good job, Sam. Good job, buddy. Great shot. Great job.
Darnold's rate isn't just the best among NFL starters, it's off the charts.
From a young age, I've just been able to throw the football. It was just something I always practiced, right? It's like I'd be laying in bed with the football and just tossing it up to myself and trying to see how much I can spin it. And that's just something I've always kind of been interested in and kind of a geek about.
His spin rate's somewhere in the 600s, which is a great spot to be in because the ball can travel, it has tightness, it doesn't wobble, it can carry through. But also, it is right in the sweet spot of when it hits your hands, it is not powering through you. He's going to be able to drive it in there, but not in a manner that is difficult to catch.
Willy Donick sent that to me. That was from the Hard Knocks with the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks here later this week to practice with the Tennessee Titans. And I saw that clip and I said, I need to be alone for a minute. You know me with all of these crazy analytics. I love them. So that was on Sam Darnold's spin rate, the number of revolutions per minute that the ball makes when you throw it. Sam Darnold's spin rate, 639. The average NFL quarterback spin rate, 570. Now, I tried as hard as I could to find somewhere or someone who could tell me Cam Ward's, but this is proprietary information. It is not publicly available. But we've talked so much, Willie and Derek, about Cam Ward's velocity on his passes and whether it makes it harder for his receivers to catch it. So when I saw that, I said, I'm going to be at the joint practice on Friday. It's going to be something I'm going to watch now, the way that the ball leaves Sam Darnold's hands.
It's something that we have discussed that we're seeing in other sports now, hockey and baseball in particular, where in the middle of a game, you can find out how fast was a guy running, how fast was a guy skating, how fast was that shot. We know in baseball, they have these things for pitchers that are really down to they have the science and they can interpret these numbers. Spin rate is a big one, right? How much is your ball spinning compared to the average? So that number on Darnold caught my attention, but we really need to see it in the context of everybody else. We have been curious since last year about how, quote, catchable Cam Ward's passes are. So, Derek, I'll throw it to you in general because we don't have the numbers on Cam.
Yeah.
But the theory, and I heard Cooper Kupp talking about it in this episode of Hard Knocks. You heard the coach there talking about it. The theory is that the tighter the spin, the more spin you have, the more catchable the ball is in general, right? That's the point they were making. Have you found that to be true? Not knowing exactly how, but
I mean, it's
would you
harder
rather
to
catch a spiral?
wobbly ball than to catch a ball that is pinpoint accurate and has a tight rotation in its spin because there's no wobble to it. It fits your hands perfectly. So yeah, I mean that's what any quarterback, I think, a receiver would say, yeah, I would rather catch that ball than a, wobbly one because maybe it hits your hands wrong, your fingers wrong, end up breaking your fingers. A lot of times guys get broke fingers because it's not a tight spiral. It has some wobble to it, or it hits the ground and they try to catch it on the skip, something like that.
I would say it easily, once a game, sometimes multiple times a game, we find ourselves asking that same question about Cam is, okay, that ball could have been caught. And then we debate it here on the show. Derek says, hey, wide receivers, you got to catch that ball. But there seem to be a lot of throws with Cam that are somewhat catchable, but not perfect throws. And they're coming in hot. They're not perfect throws. And so if I'm the Titans, I hope they have their own numbers on that. It sounds to me like it's probably some service that is offered to teams?
It's Next Gen Stats, which is the NFL's analytical database.
So every team does use it.
Every team has access to it,
but
I
do they
don't
have
know.
to pay for it? Probably, maybe.
I don't know. I mean,
But who does the actual recording of the rotations of the ball in practice? That's the part. Like,
Or is it only the games that they record that?
Yeah.
That would be another question.
I mean, Next Gen Stats works with Amazon, I want to say, in terms of developing all these stats. But Next Gen Stats is the NFL's in-house analytical database. So
Okay.
I have to imagine all of these teams have access to this
Okay.
information.
And you can't. It's not like the end all be all. It's like the fastest straight ahead skater in the NHL isn't necessarily the best player.
It's
right?
performance tracking. So if you're a hockey fan and you go to NHL Edge and you want to see how fast Roman Josi skates or how hard Steven Stamkos shoots, this is the NFL version of it. They track similar things for football players. That's
And they do with baseball. They say, that ball was hit. Something for decades. You never heard of how hard the ball. You're like, boy, he hit that hard. Well, now it's like, how hard? Well, that was 105 miles off the bat. That was 110 miles off the bat. And it really doesn't matter if you get it done. If it's a double, it's a double, right? If it's a home run, who cares if it was 105 or 110? But it is used by people to say, okay, tell me exactly what's going on here. It's a fine-tuned way. So I would think with quarterbacks, I would want to know about spin rate and catchability and touch. If there's ways to quantify that beyond just the eye test to, illuminate what you're seeing with your eyes, because that, to me, that's coming up every practice, every game of the way Cam throws the ball. Are there things that he can do to make his ball more catchable? I've wondered that.
I mean, catchable is it. To me, it's within the radius of throughout around your body. Are the passes being put in a position where they're not hospital balls in a sense? But if it's within my radius, whether I'm running or have the ability to jump up, then those are catchable balls. Now, I've with Cam, and we were trying to figure this out, I think, last week, because the two hardest footballs that I've caught was Jim Miller in college and Tony Banks in college, one after the other. And I had to get used to Jim as a freshman. I had to get used. He was a senior. So I had to get used to catching, the football coming off of his arm. And then the next following year, I had to get used to Tony Banks. They both threw hard balls. Once we got used to one another, then I didn't go out there saying you're throwing the ball too hard. It was like we know each other. So I know when the ball's coming hot. And that's what I'm trying to figure out with Cam. Is it a hard pass or is it a quick pass? It has to be one of the two. I think a hard pass is when you try to force it in there and you didn't recognize what you were seeing quickly. So you're just trying to muscle through there. A lot of times those are off target. A lot of times those are uncatchable. But if it's a quick pass, it's about finding the zone in defense, finding a hole in the defense, and I got to put it there. It doesn't necessarily mean it's hard. It's just, it's quick. And when it's quick, me as a receiver, I got to get into it quick. I got to get my head around quick. I got to get my hands up quick. So when I saw the pass to Wandale, I thought that was a quick pass, not a hard pass. It was a quick pass, but they both got to get on the same page. I know that if Cam sees what I'm seeing, he want to throw the ball quick. So I got to get my head around. If the ball hits you in the back of your head, it's your fault, not the quarterback's fault, because you need to get your head around.
Well, our working theory, since Cam Ward entered the NFL with the Tennessee Titans, as we watched all of his games, is that he throws the ball too hard, and that has a negative effect on his accuracy. We've talked so much about his accuracy. That's why I was really hoping to find what Cam Ward's spin rate is compared to Sam Darnold's spin rate, because that would perhaps provide a clue as to whether the velocity of his passes has something to do with his inaccuracy.
I think it's his base. He just got to get himself set. He got to get himself set, to throw the ball. And if you're going to try to make that quick pass, you got to get your body in a position quickly to make that pass. And if you're off a tick, the ball's going to be off. And we saw that a few times in the game where the ball was just completely off. That has to do more with his base and trying to, set himself and throw it in the right direction. If you don't have a good base, anybody will tell you, if you don't have a good base, the likelihood of that pass selling on you or not being within the radius of the receiver to catch it's going to be tremendous.
Andrew says, regarding appropriately reacting to Cam Ward, I think a good benchmark will be after week 3. At that point, the Titans will have played 2 home games and also faced 2 non-playoff teams from last year. If we are 1-2 or 0-3 and Cam isn't throwing for at least 250 yards a game and throwing 1 interception a game, I think heads will already start rolling.
I mean, 3rd game of the season, or is he saying about the 3rd game of the preseason?
3rd game of the regular season.
Regular season. Listen, it's going to have to look a certain way. I know that. I'm not sure about he needs to be throwing 250 with X amount of touchdowns and interceptions. He needs to continue to show people he's developing as a quarterback. He needs to be taking the right steps. And after 3 games, yeah, there should be a sense of, okay, I know where we're headed as a team. And if there's still a question mark with your quarterback after the 3rd game, then yeah, it would be, you would be a fool not to have questions. You just following people blindly at that point.
Well, so let's bring it back to where we started the discussion. Sam Darnold, I would imagine, has always had a great spin rate. He probably didn't just have it the last 2 years where he's become a good quarterback.
He said he worked on it when he was a kid. In that clip.
And so I don't know if they even kept spin rate when he first came
Probably
in.
not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they didn't when he was a struggling Jets young quarterback who was seeing ghosts and all those things, right? So it's just one ingredient in all these ingredients that go into can Cam Ward be effective. But I am curious about that. That did catch. That was the first thing I thought of. It's like, oh, they actually can find a spin rate. And what does that mean? Like what the catchable ball is something that I would love to learn more about with numbers that back it up.
Is there a chip in the ball? Did they say?
No, I don't think so. And they still, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong. They do not put a chip in the hockey puck, even though they can measure how fast the puck is going. They don't want the puck.
That's right.
They don't want the chip in the puck because it affects the
balance.
Right. It's a solid rubber.
Exactly.
So you'd have to put it in there. So I don't know if you could put a chip in the football.
Put a thin one, just real thin.
I guess it's got to be really small to not affect the flight of the ball.
You're right.
It's like when some of you kids out there, including Connor, don't remember when TVs had those huge ass backs, right?
TV got back.
So maybe at one point they couldn't find a computer chip small enough to fit into a football to not negatively affect the football.
Yeah.
But I think in today's day and age, with
I
the
think
technology we have at our disposal, it can happen. 615-737-1025. Turron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation, Titans reporter will join us coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home with a $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you quickly to update our previous conversation about spin rate. There are chips in the football, so there you go.
There you
Every
go.
day. How do they get a chip in there without messing up the flight of the ball?
Well,
I
according
guess
to
they
the
figured it out.
NFL, quarterbacks tested different tracking devices to ensure that the chips would not impact the flight of the ball. So I guess
Listen,
it all worked out.
If we could see a pebble on the moon, we can put a chip in the ball.
That's right.
There we go.
I'm curious, will they get to the point where if somebody just goes in like a quarterback sneak and there's just massive humanity and you can't see the ball, would that chip be able to help you identify a first down or not? I've seen plays where you're like, boy, I wish they had a chip or something you could find it, because
I'm
every
sure it
camera
would.
angle, you cannot see the ball.
Let's go to our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Turron Davenport, who joins us every Monday at 4 and is presented by Bart Durham Injury Law. Hello, TD. How are you?
Hey, what's going on?
So, Turron, you were out in San Francisco all last week. You attended the joint practice. You attended the preseason game. You've now had a couple of practices under your belt back here in Nashville. The things you were left concerned about when the team departed San Francisco last week, after 2 practices, are you feeling more encouraged about any of those so-called problem areas?
Yeah, well, out there in Santa Clara, it was actually more of the same what we had seen from the secondary. And I think there should be reason for concern about that. Flott and Taylor are guys that were, brought in to refresh the secondary and boost it, but I haven't really seen that consistently. And there was more of it today in practice, and you saw it on Saturday's practice too, and you saw it in the game, the preseason game on Thursday, and then you saw it in practice on Tuesday. It just is over and over. That is an area where I would be concerned if I were a Titans fan or on that staff.
Why do you think that unit is having such a hard time through the beginning of camp, Turron?
It's interesting because, you take Cordell Flott, he's been in phase, but he's just not consistently making plays on the football. I mean, look at the one just dribbling. He did get beat, but he got in position, but the ball was a really good thrown one, and it was a 30-plus yard gain. I can't really – look, if I had the answer, I probably would have to join Tony Oden, and working with that group. But one way or another, they have to get it fixed.
Turron, on Friday, the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks will be in town for another joint practice ahead of the team's preseason meeting over the weekend. Let's fast forward to Friday for just a moment. Which matchup, player versus player matchup, do you think will tell us the most about where the Titans are this far into camp?
That's a good one. I would say, definitely look at the Wan'Dale Robinson and Devin Witherspoon matchup. That's one. That's pay-per-view TV right there, man. You got a really good slot receiver, very advanced with his routes, etc., going against a guy like Devin Witherspoon, who's easily one of the best nickel corners, if not the best in the league. He was paid accordingly. So that's one. I really would like to see that Skoronski-Leonard Williams matchup. I'm not going to put the Leonard Williams and, you could put Skoronski against Williams, and then you got the other D tackle who went to Texas with Devondre Sweat. You got him going against Carmona, two young players going against it there. I think that's a good gauge, when you look at this young offensive line, the right guard that is, and how that goes against a veteran.
Now, Turron, are we getting, because this is what we're trying to understand, at least on this show, we know what we see out in practice, and I'm just talking about from a defensive back to in relation to the wide receivers. So we know what we're seeing in practice from the wide receivers and the offense, but then we get in the game, or we get in situations where you're practicing against another opponent, and it doesn't look that way. So how do we evaluate this offense in the receiving core when we know that the secondary have their own set of problems, especially the 2 corners that they went and signed? Yeah,
this is why I always subscribe to the mindset of, okay, take stuff in stride, right? You never get too high, you never get too low. And I think it's a good example of it because you could go out there and see tape, like that catch he made today. You know what I mean? See him do these things and you say, hey, this guy's getting ready to be Offensive Player of the Year. You know what I mean? But you got to have context to it. You got to understand it's against the secondary. He's seeing them every day. He understands their tendencies, et cetera, et cetera. So it's one of those things where, you acknowledge a play for what it is, but you don't get out of control with it like a lot of us tend to do. And I think that's the big thing as far as gauging it is more or less it gives you an idea, but you never really truly know until the game situation arises. And, you saw a rookie out of Washington in Ephesians Price up, a 6'4" corner. He had a couple PBUs against Tate. So this is one of those things where you just got to take it in stride, whether it's a positive or negative.
Now, it seems like they moved Tate from the X to the Z. Now he's off the ball. Now he's the move guy, so to speak. Why do you think they made that move so quickly?
That's another really good question. And we talked about this a little bit before practice, DMase, and I'm like, as soon as they drafted him, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that he was going to play X. So I'm like, hey, what have you seen from him about press covers? How do you think he's going to do it? And they're like, hey, man, we saw it before, and he could do it. And that's all fine and dandy. But I think, he hasn't, from what I've seen, struggled against it. But, I think it's probably better for him to move him around. Why they've done that, I'm not exactly sure. That is a good question that I'm going to have to, shoot at Robert Saleh on Wednesday. And it's something that we need to find out because, with him being on the move, like you said when we talked, that's good for a young receiver because now you're getting him in motion. You're letting him do different things to get that free release off the ball. And that's really good for a guy like him who's trying to come in and make his mark, So it's going to be interesting seeing what happens. And then, like I said, when there are times when he's facing somebody that can't coverage, it's a lot harder to cover a guy in the slot. It's not all corners can move left, right, and nickel the way, some of the better ones can.
We're talking to Turron Davenport. We're talking Titans. And Turron, we had a discussion today watching practice of how much motion should we expect in general out of the Daboll offense, especially in regards to a young quarterback and all of the things that are happening on a play that you got to process. Do you think it'll be more motion in general with a guy like Robinson, especially who probably thrives on being able to get started and get moving? I feel like he probably was in that position a lot last year with the Giants. How would you answer that question?
Yeah, I would say you're going to see a lot more motion. And remember, motion is a good thing for a young quarterback because it helps them identify the coverage, right? So I think that is something. Obviously, there are times where the coverage will spin and move, after the plays starts, after the ball's hiked. But I think you're going to see more of it, and we've seen it in practice. It's just, game situations, they're going more vanilla in games, but we're seeing that. There's going to be a lot of motion, and that's one of the things, with Tate that we're seeing, and even with Robinson. So, yeah, I would expect to see that for sure on game day.
We were watching Francisco Carmona a lot today because he was running with the ones pretty much the whole time. What are you hearing about that, and how did you think he did? He had a lot of reps against Jeffrey Simmons today. Some went well, some didn't look so good.
Man, Jeffrey Simmons was out there smoking a time or two, and it's funny because, Jeff would get in the backfield and he'll run at Ward and just wave his hands and then keep running, like he's running a loop or something. He did that, 3 times. And, it was tough. You saw a lot of double teams, actually. He and Sloatman were double teaming because obviously you're going to have to help out when you're going against a guy like that, especially with a rookie guard. So I think it's one of those things where, he's taking his lumps. We'll be able to talk to him on Wednesday about that. So that's going to be a pretty good conversation, hearing him talk. And it was pretty cool because once practice was done and later after, a whole bunch of the players went in, Carmona and Simmons were still walking off the field together. And, you know, he was talking to him. And that's just a testament, you know, to the leader that Jeffrey Simmons has become. I don't know if you guys saw my question with J.C. Latham, you know, where he talked about how Jeff has been a leader for him, too, and how he relishes the opportunity to go against a guy like Simmons. So, yeah, I mean, it was tough. But, hey, man, you're a fifth-round pick. I know some people who had, you know, a second and third-round grade on Carmona. And, you know, you're taking the starting reps. So to he who much is given, much is desired. And that desire that you know they're having is for him to be able to take on guys like Jeffrey Simmons.
I'm going to come back to J.C. Latham in a second because I know you had a good he was at the podium today, so there was a good dialogue with him. But one more on Carmona. This is what everybody, I think, is wondering. If it's moving in that direction, which it appears that it is it they're really encouraged about Carmona, or he's just the best of a group of questionable guys that they have competing for that job?
I think it's a combination of the two, you know, but again, this is a team, and JC touched on it at his presser today. Like, they're looking to have a mindset of, like, hey, we're not going to take the bull S anymore, you know what I mean, to keep it PG. And that's really the bottom line. Like, they're not going to go for the nonsense. They're not going to be picked on. They're not going to be intimidated. And, you know, that's something that they're as an offensive line. And that's why J.C. Latham said he wanted to play with a more physical mindset. You look at Carmona, like, this dude, it littered throughout his report, aggressiveness, physicality, nastiness. And those are the things that they want in that offensive line especially. And even Dan Moore, you know, you see him going out, and you see him not going to, you know, condone swinging on somebody, but you see him out there like, hey, look, man, it's not going to be like that over here, you know, and that's why he swung on Osa Digizoa. So these are the things that you're seeing because these guys, they're not having it anymore.
When you talk to Latham and watch him, it appeared that he graded very well in the plays that he played in San Francisco. He seems to have a little more confidence right now. He seems healthy right now. How much further ahead do you think he is this year? Are you encouraged about his progress? Because he's such an important player in the big picture for this team.
Yeah, I think, you know, you look at what Robert Saleh said, he's certainly playing with more physicality than what they've seen from him before. Now, granted, they didn't work with him last year, but obviously they scrubbed a lot of film. So you got that. But there's something to be said about the mental part of it, right? You know, at this point, everybody's talented. I don't care, you know, if you're Emil Wagner, Mason Kinsey, whoever, Hank Beatty, everybody out there is talented. But what really separates the great ones from the good ones and average ones from the good, et cetera, is that mindset. And he's taking a different mindset. I think that's a really good thing. And then you also look at the weight that he's at. You know, he's 347, 348 in that ballpark. And at that size, he can move well, but still have that push and authority that you want in the offensive line. So I think that's really the difference with him. And it's been a good result so far.
Turron Davenport has been our guest on DMase, Vingan and Donick. He joins us every Monday at 4 o'clock, and he is presented by Bart Durham Injury Law. Turron, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up next week.
All right, for sure. Hey, fellas. Let's go, man.
9 out of 12, TD. 9 out of 12.
Are y'all anywhere close to the playoffs?
No. Not close. We're not close. But it feels good to win a few.
That's right.
Oh, man.
Thank you, TD.
All right, TD.
All right, for sure.
All right, hold on. The New York Mets are 11 games back of the wild card race in the National League.
This would be a good year to be in the American League. They'd be closer in the race that year.
Oh, man.
It'd be, 8 games out?
Yes. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, our guest at 5 o'clock, Blake Beddingfield, former director of college scouting with the Titans and a contributor to paulkaharski.com, wrote his review of the Titans' performance in San Francisco. And he said something really interesting about Cam Ward. We're going to have him on the show at 5 to talk about it, but we're going to start talking about it coming up next. 615-737-1025. But you know what? It's time to give away some tickets. So here's what we're going to do. If you want a pair of tickets to the Liberty Mutual Music City kickoff game, as Ole Miss takes on Louisville at Nissan Stadium, the old one, on Sunday, September 6th. If you want a pair of tickets to that game, be caller number 4 right now at 615-737-1025. Caller number 4 will win a pair of tickets to the Liberty Mutual Music City kickoff game, Ole Miss versus Louisville at Nissan Stadium on Sunday, September 6th. Caller number 4, good luck. 615-737-1025. Willy Daunic, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingen and Donick, 1025. The game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen. Connor, who won the Music City kickoff game tickets?
Drew.
Drew. All right, Drew. Congratulations to Drew.
Oh, I thought he said Drew, like Claude Giroux from the
Giroux.
Philadelphia
Claude
Flyers.
Drew has won.
Well, if you missed your chance to win those Ole Miss versus Louisville tickets, looks like we're giving them away throughout the week. So be listening tomorrow if you missed out on your chance
All right.
today. Also,
And make sure you're an Ole Miss fan because I refuse to give anything to a Louisville fan.
okay. Or at least lie to Connor.
Or at least lie to me, yeah.
Yeah, just
At least lie to Connor.
keep that on the download.
Yes.
Just don't bring that up
until right before you hang up the phone. Well, maybe not because Connor can still change it after the fact. So
I will change it.
just lie to Connor. Also, we're playing today's musical theme. We're playing songs from the Remember the Titans soundtrack because we're all sad that Hayden Panettiere died. It makes me really sad. It really, I can't remember the last time a celebrity died, and I was just like, damn. It really hit me just because one, she was so young. She was 36 and she was great in that movie. She's been great in many other things as well. We were just talking about the show Nashville, which again, when I moved here in 2015, I started watching Nashville before I even knew I was going to be moving to Nashville. So my frame of reference for the city of Nashville was the show Nashville. And boy, was I mistaken.
Oh, yes, it's going to be just like the show. Yes.
And if we get more removed from those days when the show came out, it's like it's certainly not the worst show. Like, it was a good, solid show. It had some good actors, actresses who have gone on to some good things, good music, and it was fun just to watch all the different places. Like, I live in East Nashville. A lot of the action took place right in there, places that I've been. So it's a good iconic thing. So Hayden will always have a connection to our city.
I just remember when I moved here, Chip Eston was everywhere. He was everywhere. Well, why am I forgetting the name of the character he played on the show? Deacon Claiborne. Thank you. He was everywhere. He sang the national anthem at every sporting event. You could have said, "Hey, Chip, can you come sing the national anthem at my kids' little league game on Saturday at 11 o'clock?" Sure, I'll be there. He was everywhere. So
he worked it.
Rightfully so.
We are sad about Hayden Panettiere. Blake Beddingfield, former college scouting director for the Tennessee Titans, will join us at the top of the hour. He contributes to paulkaharski.com. And after every game, Blake writes a long review of the Titans' performance in each game, the game the previous week. So when I saw his review of the preseason game against the 49ers, I made sure to click on it and read it. I suggest you do as well if you don't subscribe to paulkaharski.com. Very much worth it. Paul, the check is in the mail. So here's something that Blake Beddingfield wrote about Cam Ward that we are going to discuss now. Again, we're going to talk to him about it at the top of the hour. The subhead within the review was what the Titans need Cam Ward to become. Quote, the Titans coaching staff and front office need to forget where Ward was drafted and the expectations that go along with that spot and evaluate him as the player he is. They have to mold him by highlighting his best plays and not allowing him to be the improviser and playmaker that he thinks he is. Based on the 2025 season and preseason game 1 in 2026, Ward would be better served being a game manager who can situationally be allowed to push the ball upfield on predetermined throws and routes. Beddingfield continues, quote, Ward would be better off becoming a Brock Purdy instead of a Patrick Mahomes. Watching Ward play, he tries to do too much, but his talent only allows so many wow plays. He has a chance to be a solid to good starter in the NFL if he can utilize the talent around him by winning with short gains and consistent production instead of swinging for the fences too often. Now, I'm not sure I ever would have made a comparison between Cam Ward and Brock Purdy.
Well, let's start, and Derek, I'll throw this to you. I think when you bring the term game manager to the table and an NFL scout that Blake is, and I'm looking forward to our conversation here.
He worked for the Titans for 19 years.
When he says he has a chance to be a solid to good starter if he becomes a game manager, I think that immediately has a lot of people panicking, right? Saying, oh, wait a minute. This guy was the first pick in the draft. You're telling me that's what we're talking about here? So, Derek, give me your interpretation here. Talk me off the ledge. Well, because I think what he's saying makes a lot of sense, even though I don't see any resemblance between Cam Ward's style and Blake Purdy's and Brock Purdy's. I knew I'd said that wrong.
I think
Purdy's side.
were you thinking of Blake Bortles at the same time as Brock Purdy?
No,
Blake
Blake
Beddingfield.
Beddingfield.
I think
Oh,
is what I
Blake
was saying.
Beddingfield. Well, of course.
But Brock Purdy
Yes.
plays different, and Brock Purdy can run. Brock Purdy's got the quick release. And so they're very, very different. But I understand what he's saying in terms of Cam Ward's got to get better at the basic stuff, the quick reads, the boring stuff, so to speak.
Yeah, I think, and we've talked about this, not in terms of what Blake is, but what would the fan base be okay with? And he may not be an elite quarterback. There are a few that are. Even ones that get drafted first overall, they may not turn into elite quarterbacks. But what I do hope he turns into, and this is, I think, what Blake Beddingfield is alluding to, and we're going to have more so I can ask him. I just want you to be my franchise quarterback. Forget where you were drafted. Can we win with you underneath center? Can we surround? Can you do the things that are going to help us and not hurt us? If you can do that consistently, listen, we know you're not going to be Patrick Mahomes. We know you're not going to be Lamar or, Burrow or Josh. We know that. But if we can get you to do the things within his offense that we need for you to do and just to continue to move the ball, then that's all we need for you. We don't need you to win every game. We don't. You may have to win a game, but don't do anything that's going to hurt us. Ryan Tannehill was a perfect example of he is what I think is a franchise quarterback. The guy that we saw here. Because what he did was he didn't do too many things that would hurt. Now, everybody remember the playoff game, and that was the one big one. But outside of that, once he became the quarterback, he never did anything to hurt the team. Like, literally just hurt the team from winning a game. He always did things to help the team, or he allowed the other guys to do it. Like, he just gave him the ball, did what he was supposed to do, got off the field, came back on, and just continued to lead drives. He didn't do anything necessarily that was going to harm them. Look at their record. Their record indicated why he was the starting quarterback and not held and not hurt. That's where Cam has to get to. You're our franchise kind of quarterback. We would love for you to be an elite quarterback. We would love for you to give these where we can just put the whole game plan on you and not have to worry about it. But that's not where we're at, even though you were taking number one. And that's what the fan base needs to understand. There's only thing we can hope for, because there are many that says he's not going to be that elite guy. Well, if we just get a good starting quarterback, a franchise quarterback, then okay, now you got to move forward. But you got to understand where you are and who you have underneath center. I'm not saying that he's not going to turn into an elite quarterback. What I'm saying is, are you okay if he becomes what Blake Beddingfield is saying?
And I think it's a fair question to ask. Can he start doing more of that? If it's not his foundation, he has come up through the ranks as a quote playmaker, right? That great arm strength that he has, the highlight reels that you would see from the University of Miami, it looks pretty clear that it's going to be hard for him to be that guy for the Titans. And so you're asking him to sort of relearn the position in a lot of cases. That's his theory as to how he's going to be more effective, because the whole comparison to Patrick Mahomes, remember Louis Riddick, he's not chopped liver, right? This is a true evaluator. He was making, before Cam ever played a game in the NFL, some comparisons to the style of Mahomes, but he has not. Cam Ward has not been effective doing that kind of thing, the improvising, the big plays down the field because of just raw talent. So I'm wondering how that works on a day-to-day basis, of how they're teaching him, how they want to groom him in this new offense.
And
which direction are they going?
And I think this is very important to and even in all of this, have sort of the nuance of, because when we're talking about Cam, sometimes the quarterback gets too much praise, sometimes he gets too much.
No question.
You know, he gets too much of the blame. But that's the nature of the position. You take it and you move on. But we also got to understand that there's more nuance. Like when we're asking Cam to do these things, which he needs to get better at, we also got to see the development in front of him, because ultimately that does affect what he's able to do and what some things he may not be able to do, or some things he can't even get used to doing because, okay, I started now. Then all of a sudden, now the offensive line is, you're moving guys getting injured. They're not playing as well. So when you thought you were headed down the right track or the right road, something in front of you comes, and that's nothing that that's nothing you can do something about.
But this is where I think it's a great philosophical question on how are you trying to teach Cam and develop him day by day. The sidearm throw, right? The Patrick Mahomes throws that we see all the time where he dazzles everybody. Patrick Mahomes, where you're like, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to run one way, throw across your body, find ways to complete passes that are completely unorthodox. Cam tries those. He throws it sidearm. He changes angles. He throws on the run. He takes risky throws. He hasn't had that success. And so Blake Beddingfield is saying, be less of that. Take the basics. So do you do something like, all right, Cam, I hate to do this to you. You're a young quarterback, but we're eliminating sidearm throws on the run.
You can't do it. It's hard. I mean, in theory,
But if you're a quote game manager, is that the best way to, like, this is how we're going to win?
You can't.
I got to take this away.
Well, you can only take that
You're
away.
A game manager.
Is how you design the play.
Okay.
You can't then say, well, I'm just going to design a play any way I want to, and disregard, I don't want him to throw sidearm, passes, but I put him in a situation in a play that he may then have to throw a sidearm pass. That's why I said you can't necessarily take that away. You look at, you go across the board, listen, with quarterbacks, what you try to, at least I think, what you try to do with it. And this is why, and this has nothing to do with Cam now. This has nothing to do with Carnell Tate. Nothing at all. And I hate almost even saying it because people can run with it. But this has nothing to do with Carnell Tate. That's why I wanted them to have a Love. Because that takes the pressure. Now, as a coordinator,
who has a high ankle sprain, by the way.
Now, as a coordinator, I can run plays that is not going to put my quarterback in those situations. So we can lean on our running back, a guy that can be explosive out the backfield, in the backfield. We can do different things.
Right. What
I
Eddie
think
George
going
did
to
for
be
Steve McNair.
Exactly.
That's what you need.
Absolutely. Yeah. What some of these running backs do for their young quarterback. Derrick Henry was able to do that for Ryan Tannehill. He was able to do that for a little bit for Marcus Martin. It takes a lot of pressure. And listen, Pollard and Spirit, I think, are good running backs. They are good, solid running backs. Nothing wrong with having them. But if you want to help your quarterback, either your offensive line has to be damn good so those guys in the backfield look a little bit better and that makes your run game dynamic, or you got to get a dynamic player behind your quarterback because that takes the pressure off of him. And then you can bring him along slowly like you want to.
One texter says, if Cam could threaten the defense whatsoever with his legs, this would be an entirely different situation. He's too slow to do that, but also not accurate enough from the pocket, at least not yet. And that's the one thing that popped into my mind when I read Blake Beddingfield's assessment of Cam Ward. Specifically, Ward would be better off becoming a Brock Purdy instead of a Patrick Mahomes. Brock Purdy is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. We've talked so much about Cam Ward's lack of accuracy, his inaccuracy. So it leads me to wonder if Cam Ward could even be a Brock Purdy type, quote unquote, even if the Titans wanted him to. 615-737-1025. Blake Beddingfield, who wrote this story for PaulKaharski.com, former director of college scouting for the Titans, will join us at the top of the hour. We will get into this with him, of course, but you can react as well. Blake Beddingfield writes, quote, Cam Ward would be better off becoming a Brock Purdy instead of a Patrick Mahomes. Watching Ward play, he tries to do too much, but his talent only allows so many wow plays. He has a chance to be a solid to good starter in the NFL if he can utilize the talent around him by winning with short gains and consistent production instead of swinging for the fences too often. 737-1025. Before we get to Blake Beddingfield, at the top of the hour, we know that college football season is around the corner because of the preseason AP poll dropped today. Derek Mason, by chance, which conference do the top 2 teams play in?
The Big Ten.
That's right, but that's not what we're going to talk about. Vanderbilt did not make the preseason top 25, but the two of you went to Vanderbilt practice last week. You have a lot of observations, plus Vanderbilt and Clark Lee. He still has a big decision to make. We will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. College football season around the corner. The preseason AP poll came out earlier today. Ohio State at number 1, Oregon at number 2, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Texas round out the top 5. Derek Mason, the last time the Big Ten had the numbers 1 and 2 teams in the preseason poll was 1961. Willy Donick, I believe this is the first time since 2015 that an SEC team or no SEC teams received any first place votes
You know
in
why?
the AP preseason top 25.
Because that is a poll that takes into consideration your pathway to a national championship. And so I don't think anybody in the SEC is going to run the table. Got a tougher path.
Here we go.
Well, if it makes you feel better, the SEC had 9 teams in the preseason top 25.
There's no question they're going to be flooding the top
deeper.
25. They're deeper.
There we go. All right, cool.
I'm going to have a musical theme on Friday about songs that have to do with the word deep, depth.
And they're just SEC fight songs. And that's it.
Exactly.
This was an interesting
Oh,
note.
man.
Alabama ranked 13th in the AP preseason top 25, snapping a 17-year streak of being ranked in the preseason top 10, the second longest streak in poll history behind USC from 1965 to 1983.
Man, how the mighty have fallen.
Indeed.
Man.
But the two of you last week went to Vanderbilt football practice. The Commodores had a scrimmage over the weekend. Clark Lee did not name a starting quarterback after said scrimmage. Jared Curtis and Blaise Berlowitz continue to compete for the job. Reading here from Aria Gerson of the Tennessean, quote, Lee indicated that he is unlikely to name a starting quarterback within the next week, instead waiting until after the second scrimmage, August 22nd, to evaluate and name a starter for the opener against Austin Peay at First Bank Stadium on September 6th. So the two of you, what did you see out there late last week when you visited Vanderbilt football practice?
Well, I think the quarterback thing is the main focus that everybody's got. And for those that have not been following it day in and day out, Blaise Berlowitz has basically been running with the first team throughout the training camp.
And
so
he was
far.
Diego Pavia's backup each of the past couple of seasons.
Yes, and going even back to New Mexico State, Berlowitz came with Diego
and the rest of the New Mexico State crew.
Right, not just players, but staff. Right,
Yes.
they brought a lot of guys, and that was very successful.
He was a part of the caravan from
And
New Mexico
others,
State to Vanderbilt.
You know, Kurt Cignetti did it with James Madison. They're going to try to do that at Auburn now with South Florida's people. It has been an effective way to jumpstart a program, and obviously Vanderbilt's got that now. But Berlowitz, and I'd be curious, Derek, to know what jumped out at you, because I think we all saw from Jared Curtis what we thought we were going to see. He's got some tremendous tools that just jump out at you. We were just talking to different people at the sideline, and Curtis would make a throw, and everybody would go, "Wow, look at that!" Like, but he also made mistakes, right? He also had some big issues during that one particular practice, and then in the scrimmage, Clark Lee said that was probably his best scrimmage that he has had, his best day, and so you would think he's going to continue to progress. He's got the talent. He's going to get better the more he plays. But it's a really intriguing situation day in and day out when you've got a guy 3 or 4 or 5 years, I guess 3 or 4 years older, I think, than Jared Curtis and Berlowitz.
Yeah, I just, when you go out there, obviously, he looks the par. He will fill out a little bit more going into his second year, but he looks the par. He does make throws, starter type throws at times. But I think as a young guy still developing within an offense, things are moving at a fast pace for him. And he hasn't, mastered the ability to slow it down in a sense, mentally. Again, he has all the tools. He can throw the ball a mile. He's big. He can run. But none of that means nothing if you don't know the offense and you're not used to the speed of the game. So I think eventually my worry is, and I'm not sure why I'm worrying about it, because I believe in what Coach Clark Lee is doing with that program and how he's bringing players up and how he's developing them. But the fact in this landscape that it's almost like sometimes you feel you got to play a young guy even when he's not ready. And if the guy shows, if Jared Curtis comes out and he continues to get better, then okay, that's a different story. But if he continues to have those ups and downs, I don't see no benefit of, just throwing a young kid out there to the wolves. Now, the good part about it is they have a seasoned offensive line. So that's a big plus for a young quarterback. At least you're going to get it protected. And then you figure because of that, the run game is going to take up the bulk of, what we're going to do offensively. So that's one of the saving graces, that they seem to have another really good offensive line that can protect their quarterback if they do indeed have to play Curtis.
Adam, the big question, and we played the clip from The Athletic of, can you lose at Vanderbilt a player of the caliber of Diego Pavia and then the next best player on the team, Eli Stowers? Can you lose two guys like that at Vanderbilt and still be a good team? That's the chip on Vanderbilt's shoulder. You heard Chad talking about it on Friday. And I think that's what drives them every day at practice. They feel like their roster is going to be solid, and not just solid, but they feel really good about, even though the offensive line is going to be different, they feel very good about the defense. The level of talent and depth that they've got is night and day compared to 3 or 4 years ago. But when you lose the guys that really made it happen more than anybody else on the team, how could you answer that question, especially at a position like quarterback? And so I think that is going to be a very delicate thing to watch, is how do they use Curtis? He's going to play, right? But how do you work him in there? And is Berlowitz going to play well enough to where he makes you think twice before you just go to the kid and let him ride? And so Berlowitz, from what I'm told, the key for him, he knows the offense. He's a pretty good athlete. He can run a little bit. He's a decent thrower. But taking care of the ball is going to be important for this team. They're probably not going to light the scoreboard up and beat you 45-40. They're going to be, they think they can run the ball well. Like Derek said, they like their offensive line. But it may be a little bit more of a milk the clock, low possession kind of thing.
Bill Connolly of ESPN has this very handy-dandy chart in his SEC preview. Vanderbilt is returning just 44% of its overall production from a year ago. That is the lowest rate in the SEC, and I believe 106th nationally. By comparison, at the top of the SEC, South Carolina returning 68% of its overall production. Texas, also 68%. Oklahoma, also 68%. Georgia, also 68%. Florida, 66%. Even Tennessee, 62%.
So this is what I don't understand about that number. Is take Pavia alone.
Yes.
What percentage?
That's a good question.
Like he did everything, right? He ran.
He's probably skewing the number significantly.
Oh, no doubt. And then Stowers would be the next guy.
Yes.
But you think of Cedric Alexander and the running back committee that they have. I think it's really, really good. Junior Sherrill, they're very excited about maybe taking it. So they're going to try to replace those guys in the aggregate.
I wonder.
It's not going to be by one guy.
You sound like Brad Pitt in Moneyball there. We're going to replace him in the aggregate.
I think that's the game they're playing. I think that's Barton Simmons, Clark Lee. That's how they look at it.
He gets on base.
I
do wonder, this would be a really interesting question for someone like Bill Connolly. I wonder if Pavia and Stowers are, like, their amount of production is the most of any two players on the team year over year. And you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't know what that percentage would be, Pavia and Stowers, in terms of the overall production they brought that Vanderbilt no longer has. Is that the most of any two teammates in the country year over year?
It's a good question.
Yes.
I would say that would be one thing. I would say at a place like Florida or Georgia or Ohio State, you wouldn't worry about that as much. But at Vanderbilt, I think from the perception, the outside, they'd be like, well, Vanderbilt can't replace two guys that special in the next year. They're going to take a big step back. But I think that is the motivation, Derek, that I picked up on at the practices. They want to show that their program is good enough to sustain success even after losing a guy like Pavia.
And that's why, it's hard for me to really get overly concerned, because I think, and what I've seen is Clark Lee is building this program up. And again, they may take a step back or two. But to just all of a sudden believe that, they're going to go from, the last couple of years to back to winning 2-3 games, if that, a season, especially in the SEC. I can't believe that's going to be the case. Yes, they lost production. And it wasn't just Eli Stowers and
Pavia.
The receiver running back that transferred?
Trey Richardson.
Yeah, Trey
Richardson,
Richardson.
yeah.
He was a big part of what they were doing last year. So, it's not just those two guys, it's those other guys that were making, because we were talking about Richardson a lot. So how do they replace that? But you just figure that at worst, this is a team that, may win 8 games.
Well,
9 games.
8
Say
would be
7,
great.
8 games.
I think 8 would be
But I'm
really,
saying,
really
considering
good.
where they've
Following
been,
up.
yeah.
So this is how I look at it. By the way, Ja'Cory Thomas is the guy that people I think are gravitating towards as the receiver that is going to be in the role that Richardson
The
was.
Dominion?
The Old Dominion transfer. Yeah. They like his frame.
Shout out.
He had
ODU.
he had a good scrimmage. He showed up in the practices. I think they like him. And again, it's going to be by committee. Cole Spence was a tight end last year. He's not Eli Stowers, but he was a very good second tight end
Big
that they think
radius.
is going to, huge, 6'6".
Yeah.
Can really run. They think he could take a bigger role. So they feel like they've got the depth that they can do it. But these games in the league where you have so many tough games, it's going to come down to how many times did Pavia make the key play at the key time? Like, they have a great play caller in Tim Beck, but there are times where your guy has just got to make the play. And that's where Pavia was so good. Can you get that? That could be the difference between 7-5 and 5-7 for this team, right?
615-737-1025. Vanderbilt opens its season Saturday, September 5th against Austin P at First Bank Stadium. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Blake Beddingfield, former director of college scouting for the Tennessee Titans and contributor to paulkaharski.com, will join us. We were talking about him earlier this hour. His advice for the Tennessee Titans: Cam Ward would be better off becoming a Brock Purdy instead of a Patrick Mahomes. We will talk about that with him and more coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. DMase, Vingen and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, and Connor Newt here with you. Let's go to our phone line. Driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com, and welcome in our next guest, Blake Beddingfield, former director of college scouting with the Tennessee Titans for nearly 2 decades and a contributor to PaulKaharski.com. Blake, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Blake, I'm going to start by quoting yourself to yourself. So bear with me here for a moment. We were reading your review of the Titans preseason opener at San Francisco. And I think one part of your review a lot of people have seized on is what you wrote about Cam Ward. You said, in part, quote, the Titans coaching staff and front office need to forget where Ward was drafted and the expectations that go along with that spot and evaluate him as the player he is. They have to mold him by highlighting his best plays and not allowing him to be the improviser and playmaker that he thinks he is. You later go on to say Ward would be better off becoming a Brock Purdy instead of a Patrick Mahomes. 2-part question to start, Blake. How capable do you think Ward is of being that Brock Purdy type, and how successful do you think he can be if he were to adopt that style?
You know, it's a good question to ask because if you would ask me this question last year, I would have a different answer. This year, the front office went out and surrounded him with talent like Carnell Tate, like Wan'Dale Robinson. You add that to the mix of Calvin Ridley being back healthy, Gunnar Helm, another year in the system, Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. So you have a group of offensive personnel around him to have success like a Brock Purdy. Patrick Mahomes is one of one. He's an elite player. He's a special talent. He's an improviser, an ad-libber. He's someone who can take off-script plays and make unbelievable plays with it. Cam Ward has arm talent. He has the ability to spin the ball from different arm angles, whether it's rolling out to his right or his offside, his off-arm side to his left. He can be a pocket passer as well. What he has to do is define who he is. And when I said that about the coaching staff, kind of forgetting where he was drafted, when you're the 1-1 in the draft, when you're drafted number 1 overall, there's a lot of expectations of what type of talent you're going to be. Cam Ward is a good player and will be a good player in this league. Is he an elite superstar type player? Maybe. Not right now, he's not. But there's potential down the road. But right now, he needs to be more of a manager of the game and utilizing the talent that the front office went out and got. Calvin Ridley, Carnell Tate are really good route runners. They're good hands players, and they can separate from defensive backs. Utilize those talents to be run after the catch type players. Tate's probably not as good of a run after catch as Ridley, but they both have that. Wan'Dale Robinson's a high volume receiver, someone who can get 4 to 8 yards and be a check down type player. Gunnar Helm has the same ability as a tight end. And then when you mix in Tajay Spears out of the backfield, you start to put the pieces together that allow him to be more comfortable passing the ball around and not taking as many shots, or in some situations putting his offense in a negative situation like he did the other night with that potential fumble would end up being a downing.
Blake, is there a recent example of a quarterback with Cam Ward's skill set who successfully made the transition that you were suggesting Ward make? And if so, who?
Making the transition, you know, there's players. Now I'll say this, you know, I think Cam Ward has better arm talent than a Tua Tagovailoa. You know, Tua was a player that was needed to disperse the ball and get the ball out of his hands and allow his playmakers to make plays. The longer he held the ball, the more hits he took and the more negative plays happened. But he's an example of a player that at times you saw flashes of it, was someone who utilized the talent around him. You know, Brock Purdy's a great example. We'll go back to Brock. You know, looking at some of the players that he had, and once they started to build the talent around him, Brock's first year, he didn't have Christian McCaffrey. They went out and got Christian McCaffrey, spread the field out more horizontally than vertically with Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuels, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle. Now he was able to have the pieces around him to have that success and be more of a distributor of the ball instead of being trying to be an elite arm talent like a Patrick Mahomes or an Allen or some of these really special type arm talent quarterbacks.
We'll talk with Blake Beddingfield, longtime NFL scout for the Tennessee Titans, and now you can check him out on paulkuharsky.com. Now, Blake, we've been trying to figure this out because what we're seeing at practice isn't what we're seeing, or hasn't been what we've seen in that one game. How do you sort of reconcile that? Because you're looking at an offense and a quarterback that is developing in practice, but then, you get into the game, and a lot of this stuff, especially like, the first game is vanilla, but how much do you take that into account, that what you're running is basically simple, and we're not giving him anything complex, nor is the defense playing anything complex?
I think that's a great question, DMase. It's one of those situations with Cam. I think they had a simple game plan for him. He was trying to extend plays. He was trying to make plays that weren't there. You could tell he wanted to kind of be a little bit more of a playmaker than maybe the play calls were allowing. His timing was a little off. You look at the pass in the red zone to Carnell Tate. He was late on that throw. Tate really didn't get good separation, but he was late on the throw, had a little bit of a hitch. A little bit of a pat and then a hitch before he threw it. That timing has to be a little bit better, and it will get better. There are some quarterbacks that are really good practice quarterbacks, and then taking it to the game takes a little bit of a step. I mean, DMase, Steve McNair was never the best practice quarterback, but on Sunday when the lights came on, it was a whole different guy and, an elite level player. But in practice, there were some times where timing was off and balls were spraying all over the field. But when he turned it on Sunday, it was totally different. So Cam just has to develop into that kind of player where he can take what's happening during the week and apply it to Sunday. You see some of the calmness that he has in the pocket, and I love to see that. But at times he needs to speed up his game a little bit and get those receivers. Now that he's getting receivers that are better route runners like a Carnell Tate, those steps and that timing has to be on point, and he'll get to that.
Now, how important, because, I mean, you were around here, you was here during the sort of development years of Steve McNair, and how important Eddie George and that offensive line was to Steve McNair, because you didn't have to put the game on him to win. How important is it going to be that Brian Daboll not just get a running game, but a running game that can control the game, which means you're not putting your quarterback in those situations where he is holding on to the ball a little bit too long, or he's not processing it as fast as he needs to?
DMase, I think that's huge. I think having a good running game, and you look at some of the really good quarterbacks, once their game started to take off, is when they got a better run game. Maybe we'll go back to the 49ers, when they added a Christian McCaffrey, not only as a runner, but a receiver to go along with the Kittles and the other talent that they had. So having that run game is so important. Look at what the Chiefs even tried to do with Mahomes. When he came in as a starter, they had Kareem Hunt, but they even went out and drafted a first-round running back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It didn't really work out for him, but they keep trying to add to that running back room to give him that, take that pressure off, give him that extra option. And I think that's what the Titans are doing with Tony Pollard and Spears, and even Singleton, who had a couple of nice runs. But, you have to add that run game mix, whether it's in the passing game with those running backs or as a successful run game, which they had. I thought the other night, I thought they ran the ball really well. And I thought the offensive line blocked really well in the run game.
We're talking to Blake Beddingfield from paulkuharsky.com, NFL scout for a long time. And Blake, a couple of points that you hit in your article that I think we're seeing and we've discussed a lot, specifically the arm angles, the different arm angles that I'm sure Cam Ward and a lot of quarterbacks growing up have watched Patrick Mahomes do for years. And you say, well, I can do that. But if at this stage, when you are developing day to day and you're trying to build a foundation, would you do something? Would you recommend as a scout that you, almost like a pitcher, you try to repeat the same arm angle and take away some of the creativity and say, we're making rules. Let's walk before we can run. Let's stop throwing the crossbody sidearm stuff that can get you in trouble.
Absolutely, Willie. I think there's two quarterbacks in the league and that really can throw from different angles, and that's a Patrick Mahomes and a younger Aaron Rodgers. You know, those guys can do it and they have success, but they also have the experience to go along with it. You know, when you look at a Cam Ward, he's just a little under 6'2", so 6'1.5". When he throws from a shoulder or under shoulder arm angle, he's throwing at a 5'9" angle. Okay, so now he's getting balls tipped at the line of scrimmage because the tape on him that the defensive is watching are starting to game plan against him. If you can't get your pass rush, get your hands up, tip the ball down. And that's what ends up happening to him unless he creates his own arm, you know, his own windows to throw. You know, Drew Brees was probably the best at that for a short quarterback, was creating those open windows to throw, those lanes by stepping up and laterally in the pocket and moving around. Cam has to be that kind of quarterback. But Willie, to your point, I think getting back to his technique, getting back to his fundamentals with his arm angle is very important. Even in college, he had a lower arm slot, but it was very rarely the sidearm. He had more of a shoulder dart throw than he did a sidearm throw, which he's displaying now. You saw in the game the other night, on a slant pattern, he threw the ball at this sidearm angle, and it caught the receiver off guard, and the receiver dropped it. It was hard to see because not only is he a short quarterback, but he dropped the arm angle and really delivered it with high velocity on a short route. So kind of made it tough for the receiver. So those things have to be cleaned up so those easier passing routes and easier passing plays can be completed.
Another point that you make, which is related, I think, because sometimes it has to do with the arm angle, but too much juice on short passes. It seems like we're constantly talking about passes in games from Cam Ward that are catchable, and you say, well, and DMase usually refers to the receiver and says, you know, if the receiver gets his hands on it, he's got to catch it. And that's always a good thing to say, but can Cam improve on throwing more catchable balls? And what does he have to do that?
Absolutely. And part of that, when you change the arm angle, it's harder to control the tempo and the velocity of the ball. Now, DMase had great hands, so he has that expectation for himself because he didn't drop many. But not all these receivers in the league are like him and have that ability to catch everything. I'm with you, DMase. You get your hands on it, you should catch it. But you're kind of a one-on-one too in terms of that. So, you know, it's a little bit different. But changing that arm angle is tough. When you start to put velocity on it, it's hard to take it off, opposite of the normal throwing motion over the top.
Blake, you have some pretty optimistic views so far on Fernando Carmona. It looks like they're moving ahead with him as the starting right guard. Tell us what you're seeing there.
You know, I like Fernando. He was a player at Arkansas that played. He had 49 starts in his career. This is a guy that started at left tackle and left guard in the SEC, had success at both positions. You know, making that transition to the right guard position is not really easy because it's a totally different footwork, hand placement, all that different thing. So I thought he did a really good job in the first game. He's a strong player that is aggressive, but I thought he played within himself. I thought that experience in college really showed up in that first preseason game. He didn't get over his toes. He didn't try to get out too fast and be aggressive. He played within himself. He's got good strength. He's got a good body. I think it's a good fifth-round pick. You know, good NFL offensive lines have to have these mid to late round draft choices have success along the offensive line. You know, back in the day, the Titans, we had a lot of success with the Jacob Bells and the Leroy Harrises and the Justin Hartwigs, the Eugene Amanos. Those were all third-day guys that you've got to come in and have those as starters. Fernando Carmona can be that guy, a cheaper version of a starter, financially cheaper. They don't have to go spend big money on. And I think right now he showed well. I'd love to see him do the same thing this week and take over that job.
Now, Blake, is it hard? Because we've discussed this too about quarterbacks nowadays, or the lack of, top tier quarterbacks. Is it harder to develop a quarterback in today's football?
I think so. I think it is. You get these players that come in they've been coached up in high school, technique-wise, fundamental-wise, from quarterback coaches. They come into college. There's very little room, especially if you're a talented player, very little room for growth. You're stepping on the field right now, and you've got to play. Where do you learn? Where do you get that opportunity to develop without being on the field all the time? Nowadays with the transfer portal, you're going to get these players, and if they're not playing in year one, they're gone in year two because they need to get on the field and play. There's very little patience in that part of it, and you're seeing that. That's why a lot of these freshmen are starting, or if they don't start their freshman year, they're definitely starting by year two. And it's tough. I think the development, starts to suffer a little bit. And then when they get in the league, there's a high level of athleticism and arm talent there, but the development side of it, learning defenses, learning how to break down coverages, that type of thing, learning your offense is tough. And you also see with a lot of the coaching changes, you're getting offensive game plan changes as well, which is stunning the growth of a lot of these players.
Blake, a couple more questions for you. I know Cam Ward has dominated our conversation. I want to go back to your evaluation of Ward in your write-up for paulkaharski.com. You mentioned Ward would be better served being a game manager, which is like a naughty phrase for a lot of football fans. When you hear game manager, you go, "Oh no, I don't want a game manager." Like, describe what that means in today's game, what a game manager is.
Yeah. Don't make mistakes. Put the ball in the hands of the playmakers. There's very few NFL quarterbacks that are just elite level. And they're not. And what I mean is franchise, take over the game type players, make everyone else around you better. Cam Ward needs to be more of a game manager, meaning you went out and paid Calvin Ridley to be that playmaker, okay, with the ball in his hands. You drafted Carnell Tate to be that playmaker. Allow them to do that. You be the game manager, put the ball in their hands. You be the John Stockton. You be the Mark Jackson. You be the guy, the point guard that delivers the ball. Doesn't mean you can't score. Doesn't mean you can't make big plays. It just means that you put the ball in the hands of these players that you paid to do things with it. And that's really what he needs to be right now. Can he evolve into more? Sure, he can, because he has talent to evolve. But right now he has the talent around him to disperse and to enough talent to have success on offense.
Last one for you, Blake. Let's talk about another Titans quarterback. A couple of weeks ago, Will Levis made the interesting choice to say aloud in public to people with microphones and recorders that there aren't 32 quarterbacks in the NFL better than me. And since he said those things, it really hasn't gone well for Will Levis, especially in mop-up duty in the preseason game. What do you think the future holds for Levis?
He's a talented player from a physical standpoint. Okay, when you look at a quarterback and you draw him up physically, you look at his size and he actually could run really well. He's got a strong arm. He's tough. What is missing from that equation? Why is he not having success? There is a little bit of an instinctual issue that he's not an instinctive player. He's more of an athlete and big physical player playing the game. It doesn't mean he can't evolve, but you see a lot of the players like him have flashes of success and then, flashes of failure as well. But I think his right now is he's got to get back. He didn't play last year. Get back in these next two preseason games, kind of show that talent that he has. And whether it's here in Tennessee or another spot, probably another spot, but maybe he goes and gets behind somebody that he can develop, hear some new voices, be in an offense that's kind of more suited for him, and have some success that way. A lot of quarterbacks do that, whether it's Sam Darnold or other quarterbacks that had to sit, Baker Mayfield, they had some opportunities, didn't have success, and then they went and found it somewhere else. So, there are those examples, and Levis has got to be that player.
Blake Beddingfield has been our guest on DMase Vinganadonic, former director of college scouting for the Titans for nearly 2 decades, and you can read all of his game reviews at paulkaharski.com. Blake, great stuff. We'll have to do this again soon.
Hey, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Blake.
615-737-1025. We will react to what Blake Beddingfield had to say. You can as well. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Derek, during the break, you received some unfortunate news. You want to pass along some condolences.
Yeah, condolences to the Brigance family. OJ, who had been dealing with ALS for years. I think he got diagnosed in early 2000 while I was there, around 2009, 8, somewhere around there. And he's been battling it ever since, and passed away today. The Ravens, sent something through email to everyone, and then they put out a statement on OJ.
He was 56.
Yes. He fought for as long as he could. I always say when I got there, OJ was one of the bright spots, one of the smiling faces, but he would, because he had just retired and I played against OJ, and he would run with the guys, work out with the guys, but he also was a part of the player development. So if you had anything going on, you would meet with him in his office, and he was always there and available to help. And then he got diagnosed with ALS, and you just saw his body just, rapidly break down, but he never lost a sense of humor. He never lost who he was as a person in the inside, and he had been battling it for a very long time. And it's one of those hard things as a player that played against a guy, and didn't play as long, but still. And then you get a chance to actually be in the building with him in another capacity, because now he's on the other side. He's no longer a player. And just watch how he continued to try to help guys and be there for guys. Even when, he was stricken with ALS, he still was there. Once he made it public and everything, and he was able to come to practice, he was there every day, still doing his job. After he sort of got retrofitted for the wheelchair and everything else, he never stopped trying to pour into others. So he's going to be missed in Baltimore, especially in that building.
I'm sorry to hear that. Our condolences to his family. One texter says, have y'all given away the tickets to the Louisville game yet? Yes, we have, but you're in luck because we are giving away a pair of tickets to the Ole Miss Louisville game all week long. So if you missed your chance today, you'll have 4 more chances to win those tickets Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to the game at Nissan Stadium, the Liberty Mutual Music City kickoff game, Ole Miss versus Louisville, Sunday, September 6th. So if you missed your chance today, you have 4 more chances to do it this week. We appreciate Blake Beddingfield for coming on the show. Our friend Dylan in Antioch says, what Blake just said gives me more hope than anything I've heard in a long time about Cam. Be a game manager and let's win some games. Like, that actually got me fired up, LOL, which is interesting.
That's the opposite of what I would have thought the reaction would be, honestly.
Game manager is like a banned phrase for some people in football. I remember a couple of
taboo.
years ago.
You can't say that.
What it usually has meant for me has been a code for this guy's not a big talent.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I especially like college, the backup quarterback. Well, we just need him to manage the game. Don't lose the game for us. That's kind of like code for this guy is not a guy that can elevate and go win the game for you. But if it's done right, it still can be effective, right?
I remember a couple of years ago, Nick Sirianni getting really upset about that narrative around Jalen Hurts. Oh, he's just the product of the skill players and the best offensive line in the league, and he's not driving the bus, all of those things. But it has a negative connotation, but there are plenty of successful quarterbacks who are game managers. I mean, look, if you want to make the argument that Jalen Hurts is a game manager, he at worst, he's a good quarterback who plays clean football on a good team, and he can really thrive on a great one, like when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So game manager doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be an insult, but when you are the number 1 overall pick at quarterback, people don't want to hear game manager. They want to hear Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, yada, yada, yada.
It's a tough sell, right? When you draft a guy first overall, you don't usually do it for a game manager.
Well, that's people that's living in this alternate reality. Because if you're watching one thing and you're saying, no, he needs to be a elite quarterback or nothing else. We don't want him. No, can he? Because you want every quarterback. Ask any offensive coordinator. You want all your quarterbacks, all 32 of them, to be game managers. But all of them are not going to be elite quarterbacks. Elite quarterbacks find a way to manage games until they have to win them. Can I repeat that? Elite quarterbacks know how to manage games until they have to win them by themselves. We know who those guys are. And then there are other guys like a Brock Purdy. You can throw Jalen Hurts in there. He won a Super Bowl. He's been an MVP. He knows how to manage the game. He's not going to do anything that's going to put his team in a situation where it's not viable for them. Now you have some quarterbacks that no matter what, they're going to always put their team in a bad position. Those are not guys that are game managers. Elite quarterbacks can be game managers, but not all game managers are elite quarterbacks. If people would just get a grip of that, if you can have a game managing quarterback with the talent around him, isn't that what you want?
The talent around is the key
Yes.
in that. And also, are you capable of elevating in a key moment? Mm-hmm. That is important. But my biggest question with the whole, because I'm with you. I'm not freaking out because I said from the start, drafting him with the first pick, you have to get around. He's not a freak athletic guy. He's not Patrick Mahomes. I never thought he was. And the people that were evaluating him didn't think he was. So he's going to have to find a way to be effective and overcome the expectations of being a first overall pick. But my question is, can he get good at the game management things? And that is, get rid of the ball quick, distribute the ball, take the easy stuff. Don't try to win the game on one play. Be measured in when you decide to go with the funky arm angles and try to make a play or force a play that isn't there. A punt's okay. And some of that is going to be, is the defense good enough to keep them in a game to where if you punt 5 or 6 times, you can still win? All of this is all connected, but
at worst, that's what he should be.
It's not the way he's naturally wired, right? He's come up through the ranks on first Incarnate Word as an unknown, then Washington State, where he was elevating everybody around him, in Miami, where he was the big name guy, and he was doing it on his own. That may not be the formula that he has to win for the Titans.
Well, as long as if I think people need to, and it's going to be hard, sort of get away from the first overall pick. Don't blame the kid because he got drafted first overall.
That's a tough thing for a lot of fans.
It's almost like people are blaming the kid for being drafted number 1 overall. Don't blame the kid. What you do is say, okay, he's not that elite, guys. And we even pulled up the numbers of first overall picks that ultimately end up as elite quarterbacks, and it's very small, very small. But let's recognize he's not an elite quarterback yet, people, and he may not reach that. But at worst, he should be a game manager. At worst, he should be a guy that's able to distribute a ball to the guys that are open in order for the offense to continue to move down the field. And you hope eventually, if he doesn't reach elite status, that he has the ability to win a game if he needs to. He can at least show that. But are you asking him to, be that guy for 17, 18 weeks? No, I'm not asking you. That's why I surround you with enough talent. Hopefully it doesn't get injured. Now, if it starts getting injured, then we have another problem. But if we stay relatively healthy, then what I need to do is keep the offense on timing. We got to keep it on timing.
Well, let's look at Brock Purdy, because that's the quarterback.
On schedule, excuse me. Keep the offense on schedule.
That's the quarterback who Blake Beddingfield brought up. Cam Ward would be better off being a Brock Purdy than a Patrick Mahomes. Where would we put Brock Purdy in the grand landscape of NFL quarterbacks? Probably right in the middle, right?
Well,
no, I think he's higher than that.
At his best, his numbers were as good as anybody's a couple years ago when they were a Super Bowl team in the prime of where this group of players around him. And he clearly had, he had a Deebo Samuel, he had Brandon Ayuk, he had George Kittle, he had a really good running game.
Right.
But
I would tend to say Brock Purdy. From a processing standpoint, this is just mere process because he doesn't have all the tools that he's a top 5 quarterback. If you talk about processing, just processing what's going on in that Shanahan's offense, he's accurate. The kid is unbelievably accurate. When you're talking about how you process a game and how he is a top 5 quarterback, but he doesn't have all of the other tangibles around.
As far as the MVP voting,
to that point, Derek. So let's look at Purdy in the entire picture. The processing is part of it. That's a big part of it. But when you look at everything a quarterback needs to do in order to be successful, would you still put Brock Purdy up there? Or would you put him more he's in the middle of the road? I
think he's more that 12 to 15.
Right.
Guy.
So above average.
Exactly.
He would be an above average quarterback. And famously, Brock Purdy, right? Mr. Irrelevant in his draft year, the last pick in the draft. There are Titans fans out there who I am sure are yelling at us through their radios right now. Like, if we draft a quarterback number 1 overall, we need to aim higher than him being a middle of the road, number 12 to 15 ranked quarterback in the NFL. But you know what? If Cam Ward is able to take advantage of the tools around him and he is as successful as Brock Purdy, you take that.
And Purdy is one of those guys that's outside of the norm. They didn't expect him to do what he did. He comes in his rookie year, goes 5-0 as a starter, and then piggybacks off of that the next year for a 12-4 team and is 4th in the MVP voting. That's how good he was. And since then, the 49ers around him have leveled off some, but he has still been very good. But I'm like, I don't know if his ceiling is any higher than it is right now. Like, he's good at what he does, right? He's Ward. And that's what I'm curious about is if you want to mold Cam Ward into something closer to Purdy. I'm not sure Purdy's the exact skill set that you're shooting for, but it's more the principle of take what the defense gives you. Allow your defense, which obviously Purdy has played around a really, really good defense when they're right? That's how the 49ers win. It's not just outscoring everybody. But those principles of mistake-free football, limit your errors, take the easy stuff, get good at the boring stuff. Those are principles that can apply to any quarterback. But as far as style of play, I don't see a comparison between Purdy and Ward.
Let's go to Cam on our phone line, not Cam Ward, I assume. Cam, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, guys. Look, I have a question. When you make the number 1 draft pick, overall draft pick, the number 1, shouldn't that pick be a can't-miss pick?
It should be, yes, but we know how the NFL is, especially when it comes to quarterbacks.
And across all leagues, those players aren't always available in every draft.
And the first pick is never a can't miss, right?
You think it is.
Well,
year by year.
Yeah, I mean, and you stop and think, no. Now, as we look at this, is Cam Ward a can't-miss quarterback?
No. He could possibly miss.
And my point is, and I said all along, and I think last year put him back because he didn't get no coaching last year. Everything that kid did last year, he did on his own, his athletic ability. But what's bothering me is we're seeing the same mistakes in year 2. And you've got to get some of that stuff cleaned up.
Mm-hmm. No,
it's been happening all practice. He'll have a good one, but then he'll have one where he throws 3 or 4 interceptions. And, when you're playing against our defensive secondary, you ought not ever miss a pass, and you ought to complete. I mean, you just score a touchdown every time you throw it.
Thank you, Cam.
All right, thanks.
One texter says, the number 1 overall pick becoming one of the 10 to 15 best players on earth at his position is not a fail. I would agree with that.
I agree with that 100%.
But
you got to be realistic about it. We can read off the first picks in the draft, and there's a pretty good variance.
Yeah, 615-737-1025. Tell us what you think of when you hear the term, ooh, game manager, spooky. 615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's tell you about Twice Daily. Have you been picking up on my vibe of during the fall? And hey, we got high school football coming up on Friday. We got college football coming up in the coming weeks. The NFL will be cranking up. You've got your fall routine, hockey just around the corner, all kinds of fun stuff. And with that school in session, you're going to get that weekly routine going. Twice Daily wants to be part of that routine with their rewards program. The Twice Daily rewards program unlocks special discounts, savings. You're going to earn points every time you go in there. If you're part of that rewards program, you earn points and save money every time you visit. You can also enter into sweepstakes and do a whole lot more. So if you're looking for convenience, think Twice Daily. Keep going back to the well. Every time they've got you covered, and you're going to save money. And by the way, it's always something to have in your back pocket. If you need the fresh hot pizza every day, you can always just check in with Twice Daily, and you can have it delivered to your home, or you can go by the store and pick it up yourself. They got great deals on it. It's Twice Daily, fresh all day.
DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, wrapping up the show. A big thank you to Turron Davenport and Blake Beddingfield.
Sunshine.
Yes.
Sunshine.
What's up, sunshine?
I have to watch Remember the Titans later in tribute to Hayden Panettiere. Gone too soon.
I think
Still-
we could find a place for your boy. Remember he throws,
yeah.
throws the ball and it hits
I think I could find a place for you. But did you take him down? Oh, yeah. We
hits
took him
Gary
down there.
Bartier in
Yeah.
the back of the head after he was getting chirped.
Is that the
Yes.
best sports movie of all time?
It's up there.
It's up
It's
there,
really
yeah.
good.
Yeah,
It's really
up there.
good. It's hard to separate them, but that's a good one. That's an A+.
Yes, if you haven't seen Remember the Titans, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You need
Not
to
remembering the Titans.
you need to stop right now.
Don't misremember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't misremember.
Get him in there.
I mean, there were some creative liberties taken, of course, but it was a fabulous movie. And Hayden Panettiere, who was in that movie, Gone too soon. It made me sad when I saw that last night. One texter says, I am in no way placing Cam Ward in the same category as Peyton Manning yet. But does anyone recall just how dismal Manning's first season was? Don't write off Ward just yet. I understand the premise. This is one argument I've grown exhausted by. Peyton Manning had a terrible first year in the NFL. Like, you can tie yourself into so many knots by doing that. I think we can all agree that Peyton Manning was a better prospect out of college than Cam Ward.
Yeah.
So it's, I understand the premise, texter, and I don't mean to pick on you, but that is the one argument I do not like to entertain. So-and-so was bad his first year. I mean, I understand the premise, but I want to actually end the show with something interesting I saw from Nielsen, the ratings people. So Nielsen unveiled this earlier today. The Nielsen Scarborough NFL Fandom Index. This comprehensive study moves beyond simple head count to identify where the sports pulse beats strongest, revealing that America's most avid fans are often found in the heart of its mid-sized legacy markets. Unlike traditional rankings that rely solely on ratings, Nielsen's methodology utilizes 8 distinct metrics to capture the full spectrum of modern fandom: apparel purchases, general interest levels, live event attendance, betting intent, social media engagement, radio listenership, streaming habits, and linear TV viewership. The top 5: Buffalo, Kansas City, Green Bay, Cincinnati, and Philadelphia. Nashville comes in at number 15 out of 30. Wow. So right in the middle.
At least they're not last.
Last place, bottom 3 finishers: Miami/Fort Lauderdale, Los Angeles, and New York. But I think that's skewed by the fact that those are big markets with a wealth of entertainment options and split team loyalties and all of that. But I thought it was interesting. Number 15.
Wow, I don't know
Nashville.
if I guessed New York last.
New York last.
Mm-hmm. Is it a reflection of how poorly the teams have done?
I'm sure it has something to do with that, but I also think it has to do with, as the description says here, it's just a bigger market with more split loyalties with fan bases, more entertainment options. I mean, I get why Green Bay, for example, is number 3. It's the smallest market in the NFL, if memory serves. It's a legacy market. People there have been fans of the Packers for generations. That makes sense to me. But Nashville, smack dab right in the middle. So good job, guys. We're mediocre.
I say that with a little bit more enthusiasm.
Oh, man.
Pretty darn mediocre.
Pretty darn.
There we go. I like that.
Mediocre.
We are pretty darn mediocre.
Nashville is sandwiched by Seattle at 14 and Charlotte at 16. Okay. So there you go. I found that to be interesting. Maybe I'm the only one who did, but I found it to be interesting.
If it's interesting to you, it's interesting to us.
Well, that's not always true.
We're going to make it true.
Okay. One texter says, not totally out on Cam. I go back to Borgonzi. Before that draft, he said they would not pass on a generational talent. What's generational about him besides going from a 0-star recruit out of high school, mental toughness / smart, and they could have had more picks inside the top 100, like Borgonzi also said. First of all, I believe that was Chad Brinker who said the generational talent thing. He's also,
and he was the one that was quoted about, we want, I think the number was a dozen top 100 picks.
Yeah.
Look, it's water under the bridge. I did think about this today as I was listening to the MMQB podcast where Albert Breer was talking about other quarterback situations. I was trying to revert it. They did not discuss the Titans today, but they hit on a bunch of different teams trying to sort out the quarterback thing. And he was talking about the Browns. The Browns still have all these quarterbacks in the mix, right? They've got Dylan Gabriel, they've got Shador, and Deshaun Watson's back in the mix, and it looks like he will get the nod. He's in the lead right now. But all of those guys, despite they're in the present, they have been the belief is they're using all of the draft capital they got in the picks for Travis Hunter, right? They got extra pick. The Myles Garrett trade got them an extra first-round pick. So their strategy appears to be, let's get the roster built. They feel pretty good about their rookie class last year. and they're putting the pieces around what eventually will be their next quarterback. If it happens to be one of these guys that emerges from the pack, like Shador or somebody, then great. But they're prepared to draft a quarterback and not throw him into the fire like Cam Ward was. That was one of the things about drafting Cam when they did, is they knew they didn't have a good roster to put him into.
Yeah, and knowing all of that, you just gotta. They hope, and we all hope that he develops into the guy that can lead this ball team to victories. And again, he may not necessarily do it the way you want a first overall pick to do it, but if he can get to a point where he's hell, Eli Manning, if he's Eli Manning, Brock Purdy moving forward, then that's something that, if you know that, then you got to build around him accordingly. Not that you can't win with him, a guy like that, but you got to build around him and know what his strengths are and his weaknesses are. It's tell me what he can do and work on that instead of what he can't do, okay? Let's work on the things and that's basically what Blake was saying. Listen, understand what you have and the things that he does really well. And let's start doing that more and more, make it more concise and more efficient for him all around the board and just continue to add people. But listen, we're not there yet to a point where you need to be panicking and everything else that comes along with that. He needs to get better, but he's not going to do it in, a day or two. And we also got to understand he's learning a new offense too. But there's going to come a time where learning a new offense isn't an excuse no more. You got to get it done, basically.
Connor, what's coming up on the 6th, my friend?
Brandon Bigsby's going to join us in a last-minute call-up, but we're excited for it. We have to go after a new group of people I'm calling the Lavengers.
The Lavengers.
The Will Levis Defenders.
Before we go, we have to go after another group of people you told us you saw at Titans training camp today.
Oh, people that show up to training camps decked out in other teams' uniforms?
Yeah, what the hell, guys?
Yeah, you can't do that.
I saw, this was before you got here with me, DMase. There was a guy decked out in full Colts gear. I'm like, what are you doing here? Why do you
How did he get in?
Yes. You don't let people like
can't
that,
let those people in.
Not decked out and Colt stuff, dude. You got to turn around, man.
Also, should there be an age limit for how old you can be to wear a jersey in public?
No. Let people have fun.
If you're going to a game, or practice, yes,
yeah,
you can wear it.
Now to work, they might have something there.
I just don't put a name on
to
it.
The movies,
Yeah, you don't
the
wear
dinner.
it to the movie. No.
I think it was Rexroad, and if Rexroad is listening, I'm sorry if I am misremembering. I think it was Rexroad who once said that you shouldn't wear the jersey of a player who is younger than you.
What?
Well, they're all older than me.
I can understand that.
Like if you're a 50-year-old man, don't wear like a Luke Evangelista jersey or something like that
from your childhood.
Yes.
Well, you can't wear a Luke Evangelista jersey if he's balling out like that, or hocking out.
This is another discussion.
Pucking out.
Yeah, if you pucking out like that, do you wear?
Let us know on the
Luke,
text line.
come on,
Should there
man.
be an age limit to how old a grown person can be wearing a jersey?
What are the rules?
And we'll get
Don't
back.
slight my man Luke.
I just pulled a random athlete off the top of my head, and we'll read those text messages when we get on the air tomorrow. How about that? I was about to give the number, but we are done for today. 615-737-1025. All right, we're done. The 6 with Connor Newt and Brandon Bigsby is coming up next. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music? Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. We will be back on these airways starting at 3 p.m. tomorrow on 102.5 The Game, talking everything Titan. And we can get into some NCAA stuff because, as we know, the Big Ten reigns supreme. Stop whining on, Willie. But as I always say, we're going to be talking
SEC. You'll be listening.
The 6 is next. Peace.